She slept with my best friend, so I made them regret every second. I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs. A sudden change in tone, distant eyes, missed calls. But the truth is, sometimes the blade goes in so smoothly you don't feel the cut until you're bleeding out. Started like any other night. We were sitting on the couch, half watching some crime documentary, her head resting on my shoulder. She laughed at the dumbest jokes, snuggled into me like nothing was wrong. And maybe, for a moment, I believed nothing was. Until I saw it. A single message. Her phone lit up on the coffee table. I wasn't trying to snoop. I really wasn't. But when the screen flashes a message that says, "Last night was perfect. I can still feel you on me," from someone saved as D. You look. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. I just froze. D. Wasn't just anyone. That was my best friend since kindergarten. We grew up together, shared everything, from video games to high school heartbreaks. If I had a brother, it would have been him. And now, apparently, we were sharing the one thing I thought was mine. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't scream, didn't throw her phone across the room, didn't wake her up and demand answers. Instead, I sat there in the dark, staring at the ceiling as her breathing slowed beside me, peaceful, like she hadn't just detonated my entire world. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. I kissed her forehead, made coffee, even reminded her to grab her charger. I smiled, I laughed. I was calm, too calm, because I already knew what I was going to do. Some people lash out when they're hurt, others implode. But me, I plan. And when I plan, I don't miss. Step 1 was gathering evidence. I backed up the messages, screenshotted the late-night calls, even tracked the locations she'd lied about. I wasn't just trying to catch her. I wanted them both to see exactly how much I knew and how far I was willing to go. I played the doting boyfriend perfectly, took her out for dinner, surprised her with small gifts, even started talking about taking things to the next level. And the more I leaned into the fantasy, the more she did too. Guilt? Apparently not in her vocabulary. But I wasn't doing this to win her back. I wasn't doing this to forgive her. No, I wanted to make sure the moment their betrayal came crashing down, it did so in front of everyone they cared about. I started laying the groundwork. I reached out to mutual friends, told them I was planning something big, dropped hints about a proposal. Everyone got excited. She had no idea she was walking into a trap of her own making. I even talked to him, D, like nothing was wrong. We hung out, laughed, played video games like old times. And every time he smiled, thinking he'd gotten away with it, I smiled too. Because step by step, I was building their stage. And soon, they'd both be standing on it, under the spotlight, with no way out. Step 2 of the plan required patience. The kind of patience that burns like acid under your skin. Every day, I played the perfect partner, biting back the disgust whenever she touched me. I knew what those hands had done. I knew where she'd been when she said she was just meeting a friend from work. And yet, I kissed her goodnight, brought her coffee in the morning, and listened to her fake laughter while she texted him behind my back. The hardest part wasn't pretending to love her. It was pretending I didn't know. Pretending I hadn't already seen the messages where they joked about how clueless I was. "He still has no idea," one read. "You could literally kiss me in front of him and he'd apologize for not seeing it." That one stayed with me, burned itself into my memory. But instead of exploding, I smiled. Because that message alone was going to make their downfall so much sweeter. I started carefully controlling the narrative. Little things, nothing obvious. I told our friends that I was planning to propose. Something she'd been dreaming of for years. I asked her what kind of ring she liked, even took her ring shopping. She lit up, glowing like she finally got what she deserved. Meanwhile, I was building a guest list. Not for a wedding, but for the event that would break her. I invited our closest friends, family, even Dee's sister, who had always been skeptical of him but adored me. The fake engagement party was going to be a moment no one would forget. And they wouldn't. I'd make sure of it. But first, I had to set the final trap. One night, as we were lying in bed, she rolled over and whispered, "I can't believe how lucky I am. I stared at the ceiling, forcing my voice to stay even. Me too, I said. She snuggled in closer. Promise me this is forever. I kissed her forehead. Forever, I whispered. And the next morning I sent the invitations. A week before the party, I ran into Dee alone. He was cocky as always, smug. I watched him lie straight to my face without even blinking. How are things with her? He asked, pretending to care. I shrugged. Pretty amazing, actually. I'm thinking of popping the question. He froze, just for a split second, before forcing a smile. Wow, that's huge, man. I nodded. Yeah, you'll be there, right? He hesitated. Of course. Wouldn't miss it for the world. And that was when I knew he hadn't told her. He was keeping their affair a secret even from her. Probably feeding her the same lies he gave me. That made what I had planned even better. 3 days before the party, I staged a big fight. Nothing violent or dramatic, just enough for her to think she'd messed everything up. I slept on the couch, acted distant, gave her just enough coldness to trigger her desperation. And it worked. She tried to fix things, left handwritten notes around the house, cooked my favorite meals, even started crying over little things. That was when I gave her the fake reconciliation. I think we've both made mistakes, I told her, pretending to choke up. But I don't want to lose you. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I'll do anything, she said. I swear. I just want to make this work. I kissed her. Then say yes when I ask you. The night of the party came faster than I expected. I wore a suit. She wore white. Not a wedding dress, but close enough. Friends filled the room, music played, drinks flowed. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. No one suspected a thing. She smiled like the queen of the world, clinging to my arm, laughing too loudly. Dee arrived late. I noticed the look between them. Quick, sharp, nervous. He didn't expect to be invited. She didn't expect him to show. That's when the real show began. I raised a glass and tapped my ring finger against the side. The room went quiet. Thank you all for being here tonight. I began, my voice calm, steady. I wanted to share something special with all the people who matter most to us. I looked over at her. She was already tearing up, probably expecting a grand proposal. I smiled. But before I ask the question everyone's waiting for, I think it's only fair we all hear the full story. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the tablet, tapped the screen, and the TV behind me flickered to life. The first image was a screenshot. Her message, I still feel you on me. Then another, and another. The gasps started almost immediately. She went pale. Dee looked like he'd been shot. I didn't say a word. Just let the evidence scroll on screen, dates, times, hotel locations, pictures of them together. A silence fell over the room like a thunderstorm. She whispered my name, barely audible. Please, I can explain. I turned to the crowd. This is the woman I almost proposed to, and this is my best friend. Or at least he used to be. The room erupted. Some people walked out. Others stared in horror. Her family looked shattered. Dee's sister slapped him across the face. And me? I just stood there, calm as ever, watching them crumble under the weight of their own betrayal. This was only the beginning. They didn't leave right away. That was the most surprising part. After the final screenshot disappeared from the screen and the room sank into stunned silence, she just stood there, trembling. Her lips parted like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the words. He looked around for some kind of exit that didn't exist. Every face turned toward them with judgment, disgust, confusion. I stepped back and let them stand in the middle of the storm they created. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about making sure they understood what they'd done. Not just to me, but to everyone who had believed in them, who trusted them, who loved them. That was the real punishment. Watching every mask they wore crumble in real time. She finally ran out, sobbing, heels clacking on the floor like gunshots. He tried to go after her, but someone blocked him, her older brother, I think. He just shook his head and said, "Don't." I stayed behind as people started to leave. Some came up to me and offered a pat on the shoulder or a quick, I'm sorry, man. Others said nothing, just stared and walked past me like I was some kind of ghost. I didn't blame them. No one really knows what to say when they witness something like that. It's not a moment you prepare for. It's not something you see every day. And for me, it was still only phase 3 of a 5-part plan. After the party, I went home. Alone. The silence hit hard. That kind of silence that's not peaceful, but heavy. I poured a drink and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Part of me expected to feel some kind of victory, but all I felt was emptiness. Not regret. Just the strange hollow that comes when you finally get what you want, and it's darker than you thought it would be. I'd exposed them, humiliated them, made sure their perfect little secret was shattered in front of everyone. But I wasn't done, because she didn't just cheat on me. She built a life with me based on lies. She let me plan our future while she was sharing her present with someone else. And he looked me in the eye while stabbing me in the back. That deserved more than public embarrassment. That deserved something personal. The next morning, she showed up at my place. No warning, no texts, just knocked on the door like we hadn't just burned everything down. I didn't answer right away. I watched her from the peephole. Hair a mess, eyes swollen, mascara streaked across her face. She looked like a wreck, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. Finally, I opened the door. She didn't wait for an invitation, just pushed past me and walked in like it was still her home. "Please," she said. "You have to let me explain." I didn't say a word, just stood there, watching her pace the room like she was searching for something to hold on to. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she started. "I didn't plan it. It got out of control. I was confused. I didn't mean to fall for him. I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed. A short, sharp, bitter laugh. "You didn't mean to hurt me? You did it every day for 6 months. You had plans to keep doing it." She shook her head violently. "No, I was going to end it. I swear. I just didn't know how." I stepped forward, closing the space between us. "You had 1,000 chances. Every time you looked me in the eyes, every night you kissed me goodnight after sneaking around with him, every morning you smiled like you weren't hiding a knife in your back pocket. You had a chance. And you took none of them." She dropped to the floor, sobbing. "Please, I made a mistake. I was stupid, selfish. But I love you. I do." I knelt down in front of her. "No, you love the version of me that didn't know. The one who made you feel safe while you broke every rule. But that version doesn't exist anymore. You killed him." She stayed on the floor for a long time. I didn't comfort her. I didn't even offer a tissue. Eventually, she stood and left without saying another word. That was the last time she was in my apartment. But not the last time I saw her. Because step 4 was already in motion. I knew they'd try to rebuild. People like them always do. They convince themselves they're the victims of their own mistakes. That the world is just too cruel to understand their love. I watched from a distance as they quietly started showing up together again. Not publicly, not yet. But close enough for me to know they thought they could still walk away clean. That's when I started sending the packages. Small ones at first. Anonymous. A USB drive here, a printed message there. I sent one to her work. An envelope with the subject line, "Fidelity." Inside, just a single screenshot and a post-it note that read, "How long before they all know?" I sent another to his new girlfriend. The one he started seeing after cutting ties with my ex. Yeah, that's right. He moved on from her like she was just another mess to toss aside. I knew he would. That was part of the plan too. People started talking. Quietly, but loudly enough. Her boss asked to speak to her in private. His new girlfriend ghosted him without a word. His reputation, already shaky, began to crack. She stopped showing up to mutual events. He started drinking more. I stayed in the background, always watching, always quiet, letting the consequences unfold naturally. You might think I was being cruel, but this wasn't just payback, it was education. A reminder that actions have weight. That betrayal doesn't disappear just because time passes. Some wounds bleed slower, but they cut deeper. And now all that was left was the final act. The one they'd never see coming. The final act had to be perfect. Not loud, not explosive, just cold, quiet, and permanent. I wanted it to be the kind of ending that didn't give them a chance to respond, explain, or twist the story. I didn't want apologies, fake tears, or another round of empty promises. I wanted silence. I wanted them to feel the weight of what they'd done every time they looked in the mirror. I wanted to become the ghost that haunted every attempt they made to move forward. And the best way to do that wasn't through another big reveal or some viral confrontation. No, the best revenge is the kind that doesn't just destroy their world. It erases you from it completely while making sure your shadow never leaves. I started with her. She'd been trying to reach out through mutual friends, sending messages through people we both knew, trying to paint herself as broken, remorseful, a victim of confusion and weakness. She played the role perfectly, crying to my sister, messaging my best friend's fiancé, even showing up at a charity event I was scheduled to attend. But I never replied. Not once. I let her talk into silence. I let her throw her desperate little fishing lines out into the water and get nothing back but the echo of her own guilt. And still, she didn't get it. She thought if she just said the right thing, showed the right amount of pain, I'd come running. That's how people like her think. They believe love is a button you can push again if you hit it hard enough. That's why I sent her the letter. Typed, not handwritten, cold and impersonal. It arrived at her door without a return address. Inside, just one page. No greeting, no signature. Just 2 sentences. You were never going to be enough. And now you'll always know why. I didn't need to say anything else. I knew it would break her. Not because of what the words said, but because I'd given her nothing else to hold on to. No closure. No window left open. Just silence and a sharp blade of truth. And it worked. Within days, she deleted her social media. Left our group chats. Her name vanished from every event list. She tried to fade quietly, but I made sure the silence followed her like a shadow. He, on the other hand, needed something different. Unlike her, he didn't seek redemption. He didn't cry or plead. He just got angry, tried to flip the narrative, told people I was overreacting, that it wasn't like they meant to hurt anyone, that feelings are complicated, and I took it too far. Classic deflection. I let him talk. I let him bury himself deeper every time he opened his mouth. And then I dropped the last nail in his coffin. There was a client he'd been trying to land for months. A major opportunity that could have revived his crumbling business. I knew the guy. Not well, but enough. We'd met through a mutual contact years ago and kept polite, distant ties. I sent him a message. Simple, respectful, professional. Before you commit, you may want to know who you're dealing with. I attached one document. It was a detailed, timestamped summary of D's behavior over the past year. Personal lies, ethical breaches, screenshots of messages that showed just how far he was willing to go to manipulate people he claimed to care about. Nothing illegal, but enough to kill trust. The deal fell through within 48 hours. He never found out how. But I didn't need credit. That wasn't the point. The point was watching him realize that no matter how fast he ran, the consequences would catch up. He started losing other deals. Rumors swirled. People stopped answering his calls. Eventually, he packed up and moved across town, trying to start over. But reputations are like shadows. You can't outrun them in the daylight. I know what you might be thinking, that all of this sounds cold, merciless, and maybe it is. But you have to understand something. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It rewrites your identity. It turns everything you believed in into a lie. It poisons memories, distorts love, and leaves you questioning your own worth. So no, I didn't just walk away. I didn't be the bigger person. I made them feel every ounce of what they took from me. And when they finally stopped fighting, stopped explaining, stopped pretending, they were left with the silence they earned. By the end of it all, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still, like something had settled deep inside me. Not peace exactly, but clarity. The kind that comes after a storm, when the wreckage is quiet and the sky finally starts to clear. I'd lost people I thought would be in my life forever. But I'd also lost the illusion that they ever deserved to be. And in that silence, I started to rebuild. Not with rage, not with bitterness, but with honesty. Real connections. Real trust. The kind of life I thought I had before, but now understood I had to earn with people who actually deserved it. But there's still one part left. One final message. Not for them. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what the final message is. Maybe you're expecting something profound, maybe you're waiting for a twist, or maybe you're just trying to understand why someone would go this far just to prove a point. But the truth is, this isn't about them anymore. It's not about the girl who pretended to love me while lying through her teeth. It's not about the friend who smiled in my face while sneaking around behind my back. They got what they deserved. Not because I wanted to play God. Not because I thought I was perfect. But because actions have weight. And for once, I made sure those weights didn't land on me. The final message is this: you have the right to walk away with your dignity intact. You have the right to burn the bridge without looking back. Not every betrayal deserves a second chance. Not every apology deserves to be accepted. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is take control of your own story, rewrite the ending, and close the book with your head held high. In the months that followed, I started rebuilding. Not just my life, but myself. I moved to a different part of the city, changed my number, cleaned out every drawer, every shelf, every hidden reminder of a life that no longer belonged to me. I went back to the gym, started reading again, traveled solo for the first time in years. First, it was strange. Being alone. Listening to silence that wasn't filled with lies. But eventually, I realized that silence, real silence, was better than a single moment of fake love. People ask me if I'd ever love again, if I'd ever trust again. And the answer is yes, but differently. Wiser. Slower. With my eyes wide open. The pain didn't break me. It woke me up. Showed me the value of truth, of loyalty, of protecting your peace at all costs. I don't need fireworks or fairy tales. I need real, honest, solid. I won't settle for anything less again. As for them, they became footnotes, whispers, people you pass on the street without a second glance. I don't hate them. I don't wish them well either. They exist in the rearview mirror, getting smaller every time I move forward. That's the thing about pain. It either chains you down or fuels your momentum. I chose to let it push me forward. And if you're listening to this because you've been through something similar, if someone you trusted tore you apart, if you're lying awake at night asking, why wasn't I enough? Let me say this as clearly as I can. It was never about you. Their betrayal was a reflection of their own weakness, their own selfishness, their own inability to be what they pretended to be. You didn't fail. You didn't deserve it. But you do deserve to heal. And healing starts the moment you stop looking back. I could have stayed in that relationship. I could have forgiven her, tried to rebuild the broken pieces. But all that would have done is trap me in a life full of resentment and second-guessing. Instead, I walked away. And when I did, I took my power back. So now I live with freedom, with clarity, with the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't let betrayal define me. I let it refine me. That's the real revenge. Thank you for sticking with me through the whole story. If this hit home for you, or if you just couldn't stop listening, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. Share your own story. Let someone else know they're not alone. I'll be reading. And who knows, your story might be the next one we bring to life.